what is going on here. Okay. This is going nowhere, this topic. Hi, welcome to episode 5 of the Sweet Sparrow Knits podcast. My name is Julie. You can find me on Instagram, Ravelry, and Periscope as Julie Rose Sews. And you can find my hand-dyed yarn in my Etsy shop at sweetsparrowyarns.etsy.com. This is a podcast about knitting, sewing, the occasional crochet, just all sorts of crafty goodness, whatever I can get myself into. So today I am recording from the woods at my mom's house. I am visiting her for the weekend, and it has been absolutely great. It's so refreshing to get away from the city and to go somewhere so beautiful and natural. So I'm recording this episode in the woods, sort of above and behind my mom's house. I played here a lot as a kid, so this has a very special place in my heart, just being in the woods up here. I'm looking at my show notes, and I think it's going to be kind of a long episode today. Speaking of show notes, I have just started a Ravelry group. It is the Sweet Sparrow Knits Ravelry group. You can just find it by searching in the groups on Ravelry. And that is where I'll be putting show notes. That's where you can show off any finished objects that you've made with my yarn. It's where there will be any discussion threads or giveaways. So if you would like to, I would love if you would join my Ravelry group. So many things to join, subscribing and groups, and I was worried that it was a little bit presumptuous to start a Ravelry group at this early stage of my podcasting. But I was talking to the lovely Jacqueline of Brooklyn Knit Folk about it, and she said that her advice was to start a Ravelry group now, so that I'll have that record kind of going back, and I'll have show notes from the beginning. So yeah, that's where you can find all that business. Let's start with works in progress. In my really cute beehive bag from Adelaide Cottage, I have socks for my lovely boyfriend Rob, and they're almost done. I bound off the second sock this morning. These are made of my yarn. They're Sweet Sparrow yarns in the House Wren base in the Dickon colorway, and I'm really excited about how these knit up. I think they'll be really cozy and snuggly, and yeah, so they just need afterthought heels and they will be set to go. I mentioned in my last podcast that I had just purchased a second set of two 16-inch size US 2 carbons circulars, which are my sock needles of choice. Now that I have 2 sets of sock needles, I'm going to dedicate one set to putting in afterthought heels, because I have a lot of socks that need their afterthought heels, and I'm going to use the other set to cast on more socks, because that's really the easiest thing for me to knit on the train, and it's comfort knitting to me. I love having a pair of socks on the needles basically at all times. I'm also going to throw in here that you are getting me au naturel this week. I really try not to wear makeup on the weekends. I like to kind of give my skin a break. Although, to be honest, I don't always wear makeup during the week either. I've definitely been known to show up at work with no makeup on, which isn't a big deal. My job is, I work in a creative environment, and people are not terribly concerned about whether you're wearing makeup or not. Yeah, if I if I look a little different this week, that's why. Okay, my second work in progress. Let's put this away. I don't want to get any forest friends coming into my sock knitting. Next, this is in a bag from Amy Beth of the Fat Squirrel Speaks. It's this super cute fabric with little fireflies and trees, and then this little girl climbing a tree, which I always did as a child. I used to pack a little backpack of snacks and books, and I would climb up in a tree in my parents' front yard, and I would just spend the day in there just reading, and it was wonderful. That's still something that you know, my present day self would still completely enjoy that. So my calligraphy cardigan is looking a lot like it looked last week. I have knit another 2 inches of just straight stockinette on the bottom. Oh, there's a thing buzzing around, a buzzing thing. I've knit about 2 inches of straight stockinette, and this cute little stitch marker marks where I have 1 more inch of stockinette to go, and then I will be ready to start 4 inches of 2x2 ribbing. And yeah, I think this will be a really cozy cardigan. Let's see if I can try it on for you. So here it is so far. I love it! There we go. So it has this collar that folds over. This is where the button bands will go, obviously. And yeah, I'm actually wondering now whether I want to add another inch before I start the ribbing, or whether I just want to go ahead and start it. Now that I have it on, I'm a little bit worried that if I go an entire inch more in just the plain stockinette, the ribbing won't hit as quite as flattering of a place on me. So I don't know. I'll have to take a look in the mirror when I go back down to my mom's house, and I'll make a decision then. But it's fitting really well. I'm really, really happy with it, and I can't wait to snuggle up in it this fall. I also ordered 5 more skeins of yarn for this cardigan. I am knitting this in Knit Picks City Tweed DK in the plush colorway. I did originally order the number of skeins that I would need according to the pattern for my size, but I'm a pretty tall girl. I'm 5'7", and I want to make sure that I have enough yarn that I can make the sleeves really long and cozy. I really prefer sweater sleeves to come to about here, and I want this one to have a nice cozy cuff on it, so I will actually be knitting it probably to about here so that it hits here when it's folded back. So I wanted to just make sure that I had enough yarn for that. I'm not loving this fly. Stop! Okay. Alright, it's now perched on this little chair that I'm using to record on. You better stay away. Ah, nature. Okay, so there is the calligraphy cardigan by Hannah Fettig. Let's put that away. So since I am almost done with Rob's socks, obviously I needed to cast on some new socks, which I haven't done yet, but I do have it ready to cast on. This is in my bag from Molly from a homespun house. I really like this fabric. All the little woodland creatures. Speaking of which, there are so many woodland creatures here. There's a chipmunk that hangs around my mom's front garden, and it is just the nerviest little chipmunk. It is not afraid of me at all. I mean, I'm not sure I'd be afraid of me either, but still, it's a chipmunk. So he like climbs around on her fence, and I guess he usually like makes his way across her front porch to get from one side of my mom's house to the other. And he was not at all concerned about the fact that I was sitting on her porch knitting. He was about a foot away from me. He's so cute. I think chipmunks are just the cutest thing. Especially this little guy who's a little bit pudgy, which is not surprising considering that he likes to eat stuff in my mom's garden. He just has this like little chubby rump. He's so cute. And then when he's digging, he actually reminds me a lot of my cat Coco. He has this little like thing that he does when he's digging. So cute. All right. Anyway, moving on from the chipmunk. I think it was 2 weeks ago I showed you a sock blank that I bought from Dyed in the Wool Yarn Company on Etsy. And I mentioned that since I do not knit my socks 2 at a time, I was planning on taking apart the sock blank, since it's a double-stranded one, and just knitting it individually, which is still what I'm planning on doing. I took apart the sock blank and balled it up. It's not the neatest ball in the world, but whatever. It's functional. So this is actually going to be the color that I start with for the toes, and then it gradiates through a blush color with mustard speckles, and then it goes into sort of a cream with pink and orange speckles. So I think they're going to be really beautiful. But I gotta tell you, I did not enjoy winding this yarn. It was not fun. I think I may actually, maybe I'll start knitting my socks concurrently if I'm using a double-stranded sock blank, but I really don't want to have to do the whole like taking apart a sock blank again. That was a real pain in the neck. So if any of you guys knit with double-stranded sock blanks and you do not knit your socks 2 at a time, I would really like to hear how you go about that. But you know, that part's over, and I think it's going to be totally worth it because I think these will be beautiful socks. I am planning on using the Hermione's Everyday Sock stitch pattern, because even though this is a sock blank, it's more of a gradient, so it doesn't have a lot of like crazy transitions in color. It's a little bit more subtle, and I think that the Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern will be just enough to give it some texture without having the pattern be overwhelmed by the yarn. Another project that I am going to be starting, again, I talked about this one either last episode or the episode before. I have been really wanting to start a Cozy Memories blanket, and you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I heard from Stephanie, who is Starling Bird on Instagram, that she was kind of in the same conundrum, and we decided to do a little mini skein swap, so I'm really excited about that. She needs pastels, and I've got pastels. I am the queen of pastels. So I think that should be really, really fun, and I'm very excited to send those out to her. But yeah, I decided I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to cast on a Cozy Memories blanket. Who's going to stop me? My boyfriend Rob does watch my podcast. Hey! Hi! So Rob texted me afterward, and he referred to a Cozy Memories blanket as a Scrumptious Memories quilt, which obviously is about the cutest thing ever. So I'm actually going to be referring to my Cozy Memories blanket as my Scrumptious Memories quilt. So I'm hoping to cast that on in the next week or so. I think that will actually also help me want to knit on hexapuffs for my beekeeper's quilt, because I won't feel so much like, oh, but this skein would be perfect for a Cozy Memories blanket square. I'll save it, and I think then I'll be able to kind of just have both going and knit on each one whenever I feel like it. There's no deadline for them, so that's what I'm gonna do. Also, I am itching to cast on the Random Active Color wrap by Debbie and Amy from the Periscoping Sisters podcast. I fell in love with this pattern when I saw Danny from the Little Bobbins podcast knitting it, and just a really soft, pretty color combination. So I showed you guys last week that I had kept a skein of a custom colorway called Rose. I kept that for myself. And the person I was dyeing it for had asked for one skein of that color, and I loved it so much that I made one to keep. So I will be knitting the Random Active color wrap using that skein of Rose and a skein of just natural undyed wool. And then I think I'm going to dye up a new colorway, which I will be putting in the shop, called Fawn, and that will just be a very pretty, soft, just a very delicate brown color, which I think will go beautifully with the Rose colorway. And now it is time for for Pod's Sake, where I talk about podcasts that I've been enjoying, as well as podcasts who have mentioned this podcast or my yarn, and I just really want to express my appreciation. So first I would like to talk again about the Brooklyn Knit Folk podcast, hosted by Jacqueline. She said the sweetest things about my podcast. Bug. She said the sweetest things about my podcast in her episode, which came out yesterday. I really appreciate that. That was this bug. That was incredibly sweet and meant a lot to me. She's just such a wonderful friend. We met through the New York Knit Nerds meetup group of people in the New York City area who knit, obviously. And we just became very fast friends. And so thank you so much, Jacqueline. If you haven't watched her podcast, which is highly unlikely, definitely go check it out. She's wonderful. She's very artistic and intelligent and articulate. She's a wonderful, her podcast is wonderful to watch. It's definitely one that I stop what I'm doing to go watch it, or I save it until after work when I can have a nice cup of tea, a couple squares of chocolate, and I can settle in with my knitting to knit with her. I've also really been enjoying the So Sweet Violet podcast with Jules. I found out about this podcast from, again, Danny on the Little Bobbins podcast. And Jules is just a very sweet, calming spirit. She is in the UK, and her aesthetic is very, very pretty, very cute and very soft, and she's extremely talented. She sews beautiful project bags. Her knitting is just gorgeous. She has only one episode out so far, but it was a fantastic episode, and I've already, when I saw on YouTube that it said that her last video was posted a week ago, I immediately started refreshing, ooh, maybe she posted a new one. So who knows, maybe by the time that I post this, there will be 2 episodes out from her, but I highly, highly recommend that you go check her out. Her podcast is super enjoyable. And I have also started watching the Loop and Bar podcast. This is hosted by Kate, and I actually found out about this podcast just through YouTube's recommended videos, and I completely enjoy her podcast. Kate lives on a dairy farm, again in the UK. She is not personally a dairy farmer, her partner is, but you get to see a lot of her garden and just the beautiful area where she lives. And I really like her aesthetic as well. She knits a lot of more subtly colored things, a lot of earth tones and just very soft colors. And she's, again, very calming and pleasant to watch. And she has this really great kind of self-deprecating sense of humor, which I really enjoy. I turned the page on the show notes. Acquisitions! I have acquisitions this week. I talked last week about a hypothetical acquisition because I had left it at work. So I will share that with you now. I did a swap with Kristen from the Knitting a Love Song podcast and Etsy shop. She sent me this beautiful, beautiful skein of yarn. Oh, look at that color. That is gorgeous. Thank you, Kristen. So here's her absolutely adorable little logo. I love her packaging. It's so beautiful. And this is her Calliope sock base, which has gorgeous sparkling silver stellina in it, in the vintage colorway, and it is just gorgeous. It's a 75-25 merino, nylon, and stellina yarn. It is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Kristen. I absolutely love it. It was a pleasure swapping with you. And again, if you have not checked out Kristen's podcast and Etsy shop, Knitting a Love Song, everything she makes is flawless. It's just gorgeous. She's also just a really wonderful person. We were chatting back and forth on Instagram, and we just got along very well. And I really enjoyed swapping with you, Kristen. This bug situation, though. I have another acquisition, which has not arrived yet because I only ordered it yesterday. When I was watching the latest episode of Brooklyn Knit Folk, Jacqueline mentioned something that she got from Knit Picks, and she kind of said offhand, oh, and Felici is back, so if you want some, go get it. And I love Knit Picks Felici. It is so soft. It's a self-striping sock yarn, and I absolutely love it. It's extremely reasonably priced, and for whatever reason, Knit Picks only makes it available sometimes. So as soon as I heard Jacqueline say that it was available, I paused her podcast and I ran over to Knit Picks and I ordered 4 colorways. But it's limited edition, right? Right? So I ordered the Sprinkles colorway, the Balloon Ride colorway, the Bubble colorway, and the Ever After colorway. And they're all very, very pretty, and they will be very cozy socks or mittens, depending on what I end up knitting with them. But I was already placing an order with Knit Picks because I needed more yarn for my calligraphy cardigan, and I mean, I don't want to pay shipping, especially when I could spend that money on more yarn instead. So I want to introduce another new segment this week called Bits and Pieces. So Bits and Pieces is going to be where I talk about just kind of things that are happening in my life or non-fiber related things that I've been enjoying, kind of my week in review. So I wanted to talk about a really beautiful art installation that Rob and I went to. It's called Lightscapes. It was at the Van Cortlandt Manor, which is about an hour and a half outside of New York City. It's created by a number of local artists, and it has this sort of enchanted garden feeling to it. A lot of the pieces or the areas of the installation are made with recycled materials. So whether that is milk jugs that have been cut into flower shapes and then lit from the inside, or like plastic shoe bins turned into a castle. It was just a magical experience. I think it's actually over now, but it was really, really beautiful, and I absolutely loved it. And the other thing I wanted to tell you guys about was a book sale that I went to. There is a library in New Jersey that has a book sale I think they have it like 4 times a year, but I only ever go to the one in June because I'm already in the area that day. Every year I'm in that area on the 3rd Saturday in June. So my mom and I went to this book sale, and you guys, I got really good books. I'm super excited. If you hear leaves rustling, I believe there is a chipmunk in the area. Yay! So I wanted to share with you guys what I purchased at the book sale. So this book is Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Brosh, and I really enjoy the Hyperbole and a Half like web comic series. Ali Brosh is extremely funny, and she also writes and draws sort of little cartoons about a lot of issues that are relevant to me. She's very honest, which I appreciate in a writer. So I was really excited to see this book in the book sale. And look at this. I don't think anyone ever even cracked the spine on this. Nothing. Look at that. Completely smooth. So, yay. I also picked up this book, Traditional Motifs for Needlework and Knitting. And that's exactly what it sounds like. There's a few pages of like how to cross stitch, etc. I think the idea for, and it says for knitting as well, but I think the idea on this is that you would embroider these designs over your finished knitted piece. I don't think the intention is that you would use these for color work, because they're charted with square stitches, but there's some really beautiful designs in here, and they are kind of traditional and maybe a little like Scandinavian looking, which I really enjoy. So I don't know what I'll use it for yet, but I thought it was really pretty and I didn't want to pass it up. Next is The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. And this is described as the magical saga of the women behind King Arthur's throne. And it's basically exactly that. It is sort of the Arthurian legends retold from the perspective of the women involved. So whether it's the Lady of the Lake or Morgan Le Fay or Guinevere, I'm only about 5 pages into this and I'm already hooked. I already absolutely love the writing style and I'm really excited to have this book. And look at that, it's so nice and big. I love when you get a book and you start reading it and you love it and you take another look at how thick it is and you think, oh, I'm gonna have hours and hours of enjoyment reading this book. The next book that I found is Vintage Style by Kath Kidston. Of course, I had to buy it because it's Kath Kidston and I really love her aesthetic, and I love basically everything that she designs. And I was extremely gratified because it shows her red and white kitchen. You know who else has a red and white kitchen? Me. Kath Kidston and I share a red and white kitchen. I mean, we don't share one kitchen, but they're both red and white. So I was very excited to see that. And I think this is just going to be a beautiful book to just have around and flip through whenever I have a couple spare minutes. I really enjoy decorating my home. It's something that is important to me. I am very much a homebody and I need my space to be cozy and comforting. I really need my space to be somewhere that I love to spend time, and decorating is something that kind of makes that happen. So pretty. Okay, sorry if the angle has changed slightly. I was using other books that I purchased at the book sale to prop up my camera. So I have 4 more books. This was seriously such a good book sale, you guys. Every Cat's Survival Guide to Living with a Neurotic Owner. I have no excuse. I am kind of a cat lady. These are letters between cats in which they describe the strange behavior of their owners. So obviously I was going to get that. The next book that I picked up was The Crimson Petal and the White by Michel Faber. It could be Michael. I don't know. Here he is. How do I say your name? It's written by this guy. And I picked this up. I was actually actively looking for this book because ever since Katie from Inside Number 23 said that it was basically her favorite book, I've wanted to read it. I really enjoy like period pieces, whether it's in film or in literature, and I thought this sounded like a really fantastic book. And I couldn't believe it. I found a hardcover copy that's basically brand new. So that was super exciting. By the way, all of these books together cost under $10. How crazy is that? Oh, it was so exciting. This is The Language of Flowers by Vanessa Diefenbaugh. And I first heard about this book because I have a set of playing cards that's called The Language of Flowers, and it's like the meanings behind flowers. I do enjoy floral design in my spare time, so I thought this sounded like a really great book. Lastly, this is Love and Louis XIV, The Women in the Life of the Sun King by Antonia Fraser, who is also the author of the book Marie Antoinette, which I have in my my queue on Scribd, which is an audiobook service. I saw a girl reading this on the subway, and I thought it looked absolutely fantastic. I jotted down the name of it, and I was so excited to see it in this book sale. I don't really know too much about it. I don't know whether it's going to be, I think it's like a creative nonfiction book. Yeah, it is. I'm flipping through it, and it's definitely written as nonfiction. It's not written as like historical fiction. But just from the little bit of flipping through it that I've done thus far, it does look like it's written in a way that'll be very interesting to read. It doesn't seem dry at all, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one as well. That is everything for this week. I hope you've enjoyed spending some time with me, and thank you so much for checking out my podcast. I'm going to go and sit on my mom's porch and watch the hummingbirds fly around her garden and hope that I get to see that cute little chipmunk again. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.